You know how we roll.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another March Madness episode of Phil and the Mic. I, as always, am Darrin Michael, and with me, the man who has been in mourning for the last couple of days after learning that Tom Brady retired because Phil was the man that was lucky enough to purchase his last touchdown pass for $518,000. Phil, how you doing today, man? Are you upset about that purchasing the ball? I know it was a big decision for you.
You don't buy memorabilia, folks. You only buy memorabilia after people die, so they can't come back. They can't mess it up.
I feel bad for you.
That's a tough one, man. That's happened.
Could you believe that? I mean, they're estimating that ball is now worth about 50,000.
Why is it even worth 50?
Oh,
by the way,
I guess it's
just
the Tom Brady
touchdown
touchdown pass. I guess that's why.
They're being kind. They just don't want to tell the guy he lost his whole 500,000.
I mean, isn't that awful? I mean, listen. Honestly, though, if you can afford to spend 500,000 for a football, I think you're going to be okay.
Probably. Fair point.
I think
fair point. Not brought up enough. Fair point.
I know. So, man, the money from Phil and the Mic must really be pouring in for you to throw so much money out at a football.
Yeah. You know how I feel about Tom Brady on top of it. So.
I know, especially for a quarterback that you don't even like. So,
yeah, no-brainer.
So it's pretty fun.
Hey, baby, March Madness, spring training, NFL free agency. I mean, the good news with the baseball lockout was it kind of married it all together at the same time, making it truly March Madness because
seriously,
there's a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, just between Major League Baseball, the NFL, and NCAA men's, plus there's a bunch of other things going on out in the sports world too. A lot of interesting things. It's been a crazy couple weeks. And shame on us for taking a week off. I mean, now we gotta try to squeeze all of this information into such a short time. I can't, and I have stories. I wanted to tell you about my doctor's appointment today. I know I was going to tell you about that.
That's riveting stuff. Let's hear it.
It is.
You have 2-minute stories.
All right, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I finally am at that age where I'm scheduling my colonoscopy for the first time. So it's very interesting going in there and talking about things using words like bowel movement and anus and things like that. It's, and they're talking with a straight face, and I'm trying not to giggle under my mask like a little friggin' baby. But it's interesting. No problem. You'll be asleep and it'll be fine. And I'm like, not for the doctor, it won't be. But anyway, so that was an interesting appointment. I got that going on in 2 weeks, man. I cannot wait to describe that to you. Maybe they'll clean me out and I'll send a jar of whatever they take out of me to you as a present. So we'll see. And then last night our
viewership just plummeted by 43%.
Last night we had an over 40 men's basketball game, and we were missing 2 of our guys. So we only had 7 guys, and we were playing against a team where I don't know if any of the guys were actually over 40. They got special exception to be in the league. We actually lost 44-43. And it's funny because whenever I talk to the team, and we're always saying the same thing, we got to pass the ball around. Let's look for an open shot. When we did that, we started passing the ball around. We found some really easy shots. But normally what we do is we'll drive down and we'll bring the ball up the court, and our guard will just chuck a 3-pointer, or whoever he passes it to first takes a shot. So we're taking horrible shots. Team that we should easily have beaten, but unfortunately we don't pass. I only took 2 shots last night. I was fouled a couple times. I was over 2 from the floor and 0 for 3 from the foul line. So yeah, I'm not what you would refer to
keep that 0 for to yourself.
Yeah, as nice. Very good. Yeah, but you know what? I was guarding this guy that was much bigger and stronger than me, and I was setting a lot of picks last night, and the guys were getting pissed because I'd like to think I set a good pick because that's about all I'm good for, and he spun to go around me, and his knee hit me in my thigh so hard that literally I couldn't even walk last night. I mean, I'm hobbling home. So I put ice on it for an hour. I took some ibuprofen. I got up today, virtually no pain. I couldn't even believe it. So
wow.
I must be doing something right. So enough of my stories. I know
it's not scoring baskets. So
no,
let's move on from that.
It is not scoring baskets at all. I mean, I am a terrible basketball player now. Enough of me. I mean, I know we could talk about me, and that's, I know you begged me to just talk about myself for an hour, but we're not going to do that. Let's go into the topic of the day, and let's start with the NCAA. And Phil, you and I have agreed you're gonna concentrate on one side of the bracket, and I'm gonna concentrate on the other. We're each gonna make our final 4 picks, and we'll just see what happens. So Phil, we've agreed that you're gonna do the West and the East. I'm gonna do the South and the Midwest. So why don't you start and give us a little West preview as what you think is gonna happen?
Yeah, and listen, I this is a great time of year as we've talked about. I mean, even the novice NCAA tournament or basketball fan just loves March Madness, right? It's such a fun time. I think first of all, if you're bored, I always tell my kids this, we do this sometimes, just make a bracket out of something on a boring Saturday or rainy Saturday. Your top 16 seeded foods to eat, anything, it becomes more fun. Everything's a little more fun with brackets. That's what my kids know, Dad always says. So I mean, listen, I think it's an interesting season. We'll jump into the West. Obviously, I draw the number 1 of 1 seeds in Gonzaga, right? But Gonzaga is a bit of a conundrum to me, just in terms of they don't play a brutal schedule because of the conference they play in. And I think it works against them because after they do play their really tough November, December slate, they fall into their conference schedule. And outside of a St. Mary's, maybe a BYU, I know this year San Francisco's in it, so they had a little bit of a deeper year. But for the most part, they don't really get tested much. And then they get, thrown right into the mix against a bunch of power conference teams. And I don't think that necessarily plays the greatest. I think they've underachieved as more of the hunter than they did historically as the team that was being, or I should say as the hunted. I think they've done better as the hunter, that people, now that they can't get away with that. Obviously, they've built a great program. When I look at the West, I'll pluck a couple of things. I'll park Gonzaga aside because they're the theme, right? They're the theme. Can they finally win it all? I think that's the theme of the whole NCAA tournament. Does Gonzaga finally slay the dragon and win it all? But parking that aside for a second, I love one upset. I love, if you're looking for like a big upset, I like Vermont as a 13 seed to take out Arkansas. I think Vermont plays like an ugly style that's going to be one of those, like Arkansas is going to be stuck in the 50s with them, and it's going to be like an annoying style. And if Vermont gets them to play it, I think Vermont is like the prime team to pull an upset off. The play-in game, I mean, I have rooting interest, Notre Dame, Rutgers. I actually think the play-in game isn't going to matter much. I think Alabama, who was thought to be I think they're a sleeper to get out of that bracket.
They could.
Because they were like a top 10 team all year, and then they really fell apart. And as the season went on, I mean, they just plummeted. But they got top 10 talent. So I always kind of like when a top 10 talent team gets forgotten about. So I think Alabama's a decent sleeper. I think Duke is garbage this year. I really think they're just seeded as a 2 seed. Here's the dichotomy of the ACC. The ACC is trash. The ACC didn't get anybody in the tournament, right? I mean, they got 5 teams. They normally get much more than that. Every team got seeded very poorly. And somehow Duke's a 2 seed, only because they're Duke. Because all of those things can't be true. North Carolina and Notre Dame were the 2 and 3 seeds during the season. Notre Dame's in the play-in game. North Carolina's the 8 seed, but somehow Duke's the 2 seed. Like, it's Duke. I think this is a year to pick against Duke. I don't think this is a farewell story that ends with Krzyzewski winning a title or getting very far. So if I'm looking at this bracket, I think Texas Tech takes Duke out in the what would it be, the Sweet 16. I think Alabama gets to the Elite 8, and I think they're dangerous. I like Vermont as my big upset of just round 1. And I think when all's said and done, Gonzaga does get to the Final Four. I think they work their way out of the bracket. So I'll leave it at that with Gonzaga in the West, coming out of the West. We'll do our Final Four picks at the end. Obviously, I'm going to give you 2 of mine when we do this. You want to go South, and then I'll go East, and then Midwest?
I can look at South. I looked at this bracket, and I'm not overly impressed. Arizona's a 1 seed, and listen, they were 31-3. I just don't see it. I watched them play a couple times. I think they're good. They're good at home. They're excellent at home. They're unstoppable at home, but unfortunately, they're not playing at home. They lost at Tennessee. They lost at UCLA. They lost at Colorado. So this is a beatable team. I still think they're a really good team, but they're a beatable team. I look at the number 2 seed, Villanova, and granted, they're playing against my Delaware Blue Hens. For all of you who don't know, that is where I went to school, so my alma mater. which I think is going to be a blowout. I actually did see Villanova and Delaware play when I was an undergrad, and it was Kerry Kittles on Villanova and Spencer Dunkley on Delaware, I think it was. He was actually drafted, never made it to the pros, but he was a great player at Delaware. Nova's an up and down team. I mean, I think that they're a good team. I don't think they beat anybody soundly. So, I look at this whole division. I'm not overly impressed. I'm not overly impressed. The team that I really like here, I mean, I like Illinois because I'm a Big Ten guy, but they've had some bad losses. They really have. And I like Houston, but I don't think that they can do enough. They've lost to Memphis twice. They lost to Alabama, Wisconsin. So they've had some decent losses. But when I look at this whole thing, what the team that stands out to me is Tennessee. Tennessee beat Auburn. They beat Kentucky. They beat Arizona. They finished up the season 12-1. I just think they're just on a roll. And I think they are just one of the hottest teams in basketball right now. I look at this conference overall, this bracket overall, I'm sorry. And to me, it's weak. I don't really see any upsets here. There's nothing, maybe UAB over Houston, a 5-12 matchup. Besides that, I can't really see much here. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pick a little bit outside the customary. I'm going to go against my gut with Arizona. And I'm going to say that Tennessee easily gets to the Sweet 16 where they knock off Villanova and then knock off Arizona, making it to the Final Four.
Nice. I like it. I don't like it, but I like it. So let's go to the East. So here, I don't see as many early round gigantic upsets. Like I don't particularly love anything overall. I will give, now we know Indiana's in the game, the 5-12 game. Indiana's as talented, if not better than St. Mary's.
Yes,
so
they
I don't
are.
have any issue with looking at if you're looking for a 12 over a 5, when you get as a power school in a tough conference, I would take Indiana in that game just for a little bit of an upset, and it's not a very big one. I'm going to have some upsets, but my upsets are going to be later in the bracket.
Yeah.
So, and I'll give you a couple themes. It is very hard to repeat, right? So now I got the bracket with the defending champs in Baylor.
That's right.
I like Baylor. I just have a feeling they're going to go out early. And by early, I'm targeting the second round. And I actually think UNC is going to present some challenges after they get by Marquette. And I think UNC is going to take Baylor out early. And I think that's going to throw most of America into a shambles with this side of the bracket if that happens. What I'm really looking at here, so I got up close personal look at Virginia Tech a lot. Virginia Tech's an 11 seed, but they're not. Virginia Tech is more like a 5 seed. Virginia Tech was missing a lot of players back in December, and they piled up some losses early in the year. The last 20 games, they're something like 16-4, and they ran roughshod over the ACC in the tournament. They beat Notre Dame. They actually had a huge lead on Notre Dame in the quarterfinals. Notre Dame made a big comeback, and they held them off. Then they blew UNC and Duke out and won it all. This is not a typical 11 seed. I don't know why they were given an 11 seed. I know they were bubble team to get in, but once they won the conference and they're like 16-4 in their last 20, I don't think they should have been 11 seed. So I actually think Virginia Tech is dangerous. I think Purdue's dangerous. I like some teams here, but I have a theme. The theme is going to be the forgotten team in the East. And oddly enough, the team I'm picking to come out of this is nowhere near the East. They reside in California. And I think UCLA is dangerous. Because if what I think happens, which is UNC takes Baylor out, UCLA's got a nice path to the Elite Eight. Probably will venture into either Kentucky or Purdue. Take your pick, because I think they're both pretty good. And I think UCLA gets out of the East, ironically, because they're a little bit of the forgotten team. And that's a little bit of my theme. UCLA was another team, top 5 preseason. I think they're really good. Nobody watches them play out west, but I think they are really good, and they're battle tested. And so I'll take UCLA out of the East. Nice. And I guess my big upset in the first round, I'll just take Indiana as a 12. I think they'll beat St. Mary's.
You know what? I can't argue with you, man. I think that's a really, really good pick on your behalf.
Good on you. I know. Listen.
So So Midwest, again, I'm not overly impressed. I'll tell you one team that I really do love, and that's Iowa. I know they're a number 5 seed. Um, I think they just won the Big Ten tournament. I watched them play against my Indiana Hoosiers. Uh, they have a guy on their team named Keegan Murray. He is just a freaking animal. When I watched him play, he was 8 for 10 from 3, and this guy is 6'9". This is not some little point guard. This guy has got some skills that you're looking at a top 10 draft pick. You're looking at a guy that potentially, if he lands in the right position next year, probably is up there for rookie of the year. I think that's how good of an NBA player this guy is going to be. So you can't you can't discount that. I like Iowa to at least make it to the Sweet 16. I think their matchup against Kansas could be just an unbelievable game, and I really am excited about that. But at the end of the day, I look at the bottom bracket with LSU and Wisconsin and Auburn. I'm already putting Auburn in the Elite Eight. I mean, I don't see them
I
having
think the
any
Midwest is the
trouble.
weakest bracket too.
It really does seem
I
like
don't
the
know what
weakest
they were
bracket.
doing there with that.
Yeah, so I'm loving the Kansas Iowa matchup. Um, and honestly, it doesn't even matter to me who comes out of that game, because I think Auburn is going to the Final Four anyway. I think Auburn has got a lot of talent. I think they're a really, really great team. They've got potentially the overall number 1 pick in the draft next year, who I think is just going to shine. He's going to shine in this tournament. So I'm loving Auburn. I'm really, really loving Auburn to beat probably Kansas, but like I said, I think that the Kansas Iowa game should be a really, really great game.
I like it. I think that makes some sense. I think you're finally making a little sense, believe it or not.
Wow, I can't believe you said that to me, man. I think that's it for filling the mic. I mean, that's what I wanted to achieve, is a
Drop the mic,
compliment
it's
from
over.
you, and that's it.
It's
I know,
over.
right?
It's over. Ladies and gentlemen, we're setting off into the sunset.
That's it. That's it.
So listen, I think that yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it makes sense. I do think the Midwest is the weakest bracket.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's go with our final 4 picks. Obviously, I gave you half of mine. Gonzaga out of the West, UCLA out of the East.
Yep.
I actually love Arizona in the South. I wanted to not love them, but I do. And I love Auburn, like you just said, in the
Yep.
Midwest.
Yep.
So that's my final 4. I'm gonna go. I'm trying to get away from Gonzaga, but I do think it's just I'm gonna put Gonzaga in the championship.
Yep.
I'm gonna put Gonzaga in the championship against Arizona.
Yep.
I do not. I like Arizona much more than you do, clearly.
Obviously.
And I actually think it's Heartbreak City again, and Arizona cuts down the nets and leaves Gonzaga holding it at the end. Everybody wants it to end in a nice, happy ending, but I don't think it's gonna. I think Gonzaga loses again. And I think Arizona cuts down the nets.
Listen, I'm as big of a non-Gonzaga fan. Last year I called Baylor to win the whole thing. So I was feeling pretty good about myself last year. I knew that the Zags were going to lose, but now to me, it's not like last year. It was all Zags. Everybody was talking about Gonzaga, and now I think it's a little more spread out. I think Gonzaga is a good team, and I think anytime one of your team leaders is 7 feet tall and doesn't even weigh 200, you got to be impressed with that. I think that's the funniest thing ever. I appreciate your picks of Gonzaga and UCLA. And you know what? I agree. Gonzaga is going to make it. I can't really see them having a whole lot of difficulty. I don't see, there's not a whole lot of teams that stand out to me this year, which I think is quite interesting versus, the usual years where you have a few teams that always stand out. So I really think that literally anybody could beat anybody this tournament, which is fascinating and really exciting at the same time. But coming out of the East, I'm going to have to disagree with you. And I think it is very tough to repeat. I'm not going to argue with that. But I do like Baylor going back to the Final Four. I think Baylor is going to lose to Gonzaga this year, a little payback. And the Zags are going to end up facing the winner of Tennessee and Auburn, who's going to be Auburn. And I actually think that the Zags are going to be cutting down the net. Like I said, Chet Holmgren, 7 feet tall, 195 pounds. He literally weighs about 8 pounds less than I do, and he's a foot taller. You got to love a guy like that who could potentially be the number one pick. I don't know how, because you could break his leg if you move too quickly on him.
So,
But that's what I'm going with, man. Zags over Auburn for the championship.
so you got the Zags cutting down the nets, breaking through against
I do.
Auburn.
You know what? You can only get to that point of the season so many times before eventually you're going to win. But like I said, I mean, we very easily could both be out of our our Final Four teams by the Sweet 16. I mean, you just don't know.
So you have a 2 1s, a 2 and a 3.
I do.
All right. I got 2 1s, a 2 and a 4. All right.
I thought you at first I thought you were going to pick Jackson State to go to the Final Four.
I was considering it.
You were considering that.
Is that Deion Sanders' school, Jacksonville State?
Poor Deion Sanders. I didn't want to bring him up.
I heard he's only down to 7 toes.
No, it's actually 8 toes. It's 8 toes. So
yeah, that's what he's telling you. He hasn't announced the third removal.
He's no longer Neon Deion. He's now 8-toe Deion.
Amen.
8-toe Deion, my friend. Yeah, pretty serious, but hey, anybody that can pull off such incredible suits that he does, he can do anything. So I'm not too worried about it.
What are you gonna do with them toes? Hey.
All right, so we got Major League Baseball, we got NFL signings. Let's start with a little Major League Baseball. And I just wanted to, I mean, we haven't talked since they agreed to come back, right? I mean, we had our incredible interview last week, but I just want to touch on a few things that they have agreed on, and that is 12-team postseason, which I'm okay with. Universal DH, which I think you're a big fan of.
Not a big fan, but it's inevitable. I've accepted it.
It is inevitable, and we knew that was going to happen. The 9-inning doubleheader, I'm not sure why they ever changed it in the first place. That was the stupidest thing ever. No more putting a runner on second base during extra innings. I mean, that was, again, idiotic. And then something that I thought was really interesting, the prospect promotion incentive pick, where if you bring up a top prospect, and instead of making him wait that month so that you get that extra service time, you actually get an early pick added for the following year, which I love. I mean, I think there's plenty of teams that can use that, and now it's an advantage to bring somebody up a month earlier than normal. So I mean, those are some of the big things. I mean, how do you feel about all those changes in baseball?
And I mean, listen, the DH we knew was coming.
Yeah.
And I what I do like about the DH now is that the National League has to build it into their plan.
Yep.
Because
that's right.
It really wasn't talked about a lot, but there was a considerable people always said, well, the American League pitchers aren't prepared to hit, so the 2 or 3 games in the World Series, they're at a disadvantage. No, they're not.
Yep.
The disadvantage is the National League, who does not have a built-in $20 million or $15 million good hitter just sitting there.
Sure. It's true.
I mean, that's where, they build a team in the American League around an extra bat. And the National League typically uses the DH as a way to get a guy rest.
Yeah.
They don't have the extra big bat sitting there. Let's say you have a big hitting whatever, or you're giving your regular catcher a rest. So the National League finally now can compete. And I think it's good for the union, right? It's another high-paying job because the DHs usually tend to make a lot. So now you have 30 teams pursuing a bat. So guys at the end of their career, like even a Pujols this year, maybe Pujols could give you 300, 400 quality at-bats at a DH spot. All of a sudden, he's got a role potentially. Miguel Cabrera at the end of his career. And there's a million guys like that. Nelson Cruz has made a living now hanging in there because of that. So, now it opens it up to all 30 teams. The rest of it, listen, the compensatory picks and, the CBT, I think, is going to be interesting, right? When you just think about, and I don't think you've really talked about it, the owners moved up a good amount from where they wanted to be.
Yep.
And then there's the infamous, I guess, the Steve Cohen, the New York Met owner tax. The 4th tier threshold is the please stop spending. We're going to whack you if you go above 290, which sounds crazy, but they are going to go above 290 this year because for anybody that's not a Met fan, they're paying Scherzer, DeGrom, and Lindor almost $90 million just for the 3 of them.
They just don't care.
That's more than half the teams.
When you have that much money and
He
you
doesn't
just
care.
don't, you're
He
a
doesn't
fan,
care.
you want to win. You'll do whatever it takes to win. And I
Oh,
love that.
I mean, he makes one short sale and he makes the amount to pay the whole payroll. Like, so I mean, the guy's loaded 15 billion and whatever. So I think baseball's in, I think it's in an okay place. I'm hearing this whisper that everybody assumed extra innings baseball was going back to the way it used to be, the way it should be, like just regular baseball and extra innings. But I'm hearing whispers that they are going to push back for the runner on second.
Really?
And yep, apparently they tabled it, and it's not a hard and fast. Like apparently the players want extra inning games to end sooner, and so the owners may be willing to come up with some catch-all to still end games after a certain period of time, because the runner on second does tend to end the game quicker. So we'll see. But listen, I'm excited for baseball to be back. We're big baseball fans, so I'm glad in the end. Yeah, they pushed and they pushed and they pushed, but 2 weeks start. Actually, if I had it my way, April 15th would be when baseball started. Yeah. I kind of like this. It's too cold around here in the Northeast, in the Midwest. So to delay the season 2 weeks, I actually think is a much better idea anyway.
It's really not a big deal.
I'd love this calendar to be the new calendar for good. Open on April 15th. There's obviously some symbolism. That's Jackie Robinson Day in baseball. So open every year on April 15th. You get out of the brutally crazy cold weather in the Northeast, the Midwest, wherever, and you go into this 2 weeks into October where the weather is much nicer, as living here. It's much nicer in October here than it is in April.
Yeah, but you're also talking about a World Series November.
Well, I'm okay with that.
Here's why. Which could potentially be very cold.
The weather is still nicer in the end of October and early November here, and it's definitely not rainy. And it's nicer overall than it is in late March and early April here. It's a disaster here in this time of year. It just is. It's brutally cold and rainy. It's never been nice. So I don't know. I think it makes some sense.
I don't know either way. It should be a fun season though, and I think baseball's doing the best job they can of getting people excited. And I know that I'm excited and you're excited, and the fact that this didn't go on and turn away too many fans is a good thing. And not only that, I think spring training games start on Friday, don't they?
Yep. Well, now they begin in earnest. Yeah, they only get about a 15-game preseason, and then they go right into the season.
Yeah, but they're already playing games. I mean, they just reported over the weekend, and 6 days later, you're already starting playing games. So so it's exciting. But what's been fun is that since the lockout ended, it's just been free agent frenzy.
Chaos.
It's literally, I mean, every time you check on the TV or the computer, somebody else is being signed or somebody else is being traded. So I wanted to go through a few of those with you and just kind of get your feedback, because to me, I don't really understand what's going on with some of these teams. Like Oakland. Let's take Oakland for example. Okay, and there's a method to Billy Beane's madness, of course, and they're always good, and they always have good young players. I don't know how the heck they do it, but they've already traded their top three players. Bassett, who I think came to the Mets, right? Their top pitcher, and then you got Olsen and Chapman, who were both traded. So your top three pitchers are already gone. And I hear
they're top three players.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. And I hear they're already looking to trade some more people. So
they're in a full rebuild.
Is that just what, I mean, do they just do that every few years?
Well, I think there's more to it. I think that if you remember, Oakland has been pushing the city for a new stadium.
Yeah.
I don't know where that's landed at this point, but they were threatening with really leaving Oakland. And then Oakland was supposed to build them the state-of-the-art facility outside of Oakland, but kind of like what they did with the Warriors in like a neighboring suburb or whatever. I don't know if that's playing any part. I think Oakland is very shrewd. They felt like they had a shelf life to compete. They competed for a while. And listen, you could say whatever you want. They have a pretty good track record of rebuilding quickly,
they do
building
all
up
the
assets,
time.
and they got a boatload for the first baseman Olsen.
Oh,
they got an absolute boatload. They got a lot from the Braves, and the Braves have a good farm system. And I do have to stop for a second. I know you're in the Atlanta area, and so we're talking about Oakland, but if you flip it on its head, it's hard to knock the Braves, and I'm a Met fan, so I'm biased. I don't like the Braves, but it is very hard to square up the idea that they traded 4 big prospects for Matt Olson than to just re-sign their best player since Chipper Jones,
Yeah.
the heart and soul of their team. Remember, Acuna wasn't even there last year, so nobody could say it's Acuna's team. That was Freeman's team. He carried them to a World Series. And they had help, don't get me wrong. They had a lot of parts.
Of course.
But Freeman's the heart and soul of the team. He's a homegrown guy. And they don't pay him. And then they trade 4 big prospects to get his replacement. And then they did a great job of obviously getting a long-term extension done and all great. And I know I've seen tweets out there like Albies, Acuna, Olson, all locked up forever and
yeah,
at reasonable cost. But again, you didn't have to give up any of those prospects and could have just paid Freeman. So it's hard for me to square that up. I'm wondering what the sentiment in Atlanta is of that.
Well, let me ask you this. How much money do you think Friedman is looking for? I mean, what are you hearing out there?
I mean, I don't know if he's getting, so they gave Chapman 8 for Olson, right? They gave Olson 8 for 168, 160. I mean, Freeman's probably getting 5 or 6 for, I'm guessing 185, 190, maybe 200. So he's going to get more AAV, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to get a much shorter deal because he's older. But I mean, he's your guy. It's I don't think the difference is that much money. I mean, it is more, but
I guess.
And the other thing is, if you couldn't pay Freeman now, when you're not really paying Albies and you're paying Acuna a dirt cheap deal, and you got all these younger players, if you can't pay Freeman, then it's crazy. You just won a World Series. They apparently made a lot of money last year. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So again, Chapman's. I mean, Olson's. Is it Olson or Chapman? Why am I confusing them? It's Olson. Olson's the first baseman.
It's because they both have the same name. Yeah. It's Olson. It's Olson.
But it's not a knock on Olson. He's a homegrown kid from Georgia. He's a good player. I mean, he's a hometown kid from Georgia. He's a good player. He's not Freeman, but it's not even that he's not Freeman. Freeman is Atlanta. It's just why wouldn't you pay him? I don't know. That's my thing. Unless he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was the case.
I'm not hearing anything about that. So I don't.
He didn't want to be there.
It's got to be a monetary thing because I think he's a good guy. I think he's a fan favorite.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing bad about him. I think.
No, the Braves have restrictions on payroll. They're not going to go above a certain amount, and they just deemed they wouldn't go above it, so they leveraged their farm system. Got a really good first baseman to be his replacement.
Yeah.
Again, though, it's just that's a lot of pressure too on that first baseman.
I mean, listen,
Olsen's big shoes to fill.
Olson is not Freddie Freeman.
No,
but,
he's not.
But he's not that big of a letdown from Freddie Freeman. I mean, he's still a great player.
To matter.
I mean, you gave up your number 1, your number 2 prospect, and the other 2 were top 15 prospects in your farm system.
In a good farm system,
you're top 2. So it's really. It's really odd to me, but obviously they wanted somebody good that was going to fit into their budget, and that's what they got.
Yeah, listen, that's what they have a good track record of winning. It's not a knock on Atlanta. It's just I can't even fathom a big market team ever doing that, right? Your superstar hits free agency and you trade 4 prospects for a lesser guy than to just pay him. Yeah. And again, Atlanta's off a ring and they're off of high revenue. They moved into a new stadium. I'm sure their prices are pretty high. That's a tough one for a fan to square up. That's why didn't we just resign our guy?
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
I'm not arguing with you. And when you look at Oakland, I mean, for Chris Bass to the Mets, they got 2 minor leaguers, 2 prospects out of there. And when they traded Chapman to the Jays, they got 4. So for those 3 guys, they got 10 prospects.
Well, if you're rebuilding, that's a way to do it quickly.
And listen, if they end up being good players, then I mean, listen, it's Billy Beane. So chances are you're going to get a few superstars out of there. It's just, I don't know how they do it, but they just do it. So, so it's great. It's great. Another question for you is the Blue Jays, right? They lose their Cy Young Award winner, Robbie Ray, and they also lose Marcus Semien. And they added Berrios, Gausman, and Chapman. Is that an even return, do you think? Or do you think they improved their team? Did they not improve? What are your thoughts of the Jays with those moves? I mean, to me, it's almost like a wash.
Yeah, as of right now, I think the Jays are the favorite in that division.
Yeah.
I think and some of that they basically did wash what they had last year.
Yep.
But it's also the idea that Guerrero's great, Bichette's getting better. Their young players are getting really, really good. I totally understand why they wouldn't pay Semien a $250 million because they got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
They had to figure out a way to allocate their resources. I think that's the best team, and it's the youngest team.
Yep.
I think Olsen gives them a real nice glove, and he's still a pretty good stick. And I also think Simeon was off a career year. I think that's the time to not pay a guy versus paying him and then having buyer's remorse. So they also have Springer, second year Springer. Hopefully he's healthier because he wasn't that healthy last year.
Yep.
I think that's a good team. I think that's a really, really good team.
I agree with that. And there are a couple other moves, the Reds traded their two all-stars, Jesse Winkler and Eugenio Suarez, to Seattle for 3 prospects. That's another one. The Reds are obviously they're just throwing it in. They didn't think
they're the Baltimore Reds right now.
I mean, they really. Didn't they just get rid of Sonny Gray also? So I mean, they're getting rid of a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, Suarez, Winkler, this one, that one. Yeah, it's crazy. They're just punting. Their payroll is going to be down to $45 million.
It's going to be nothing. And I think Castellanos still hasn't signed anywhere. So,
but he's not going back there. Yeah.
No. He'll go someplace else. So I mean, they're just losing everybody. I mean, they're going to be the Baltimore Reds this year. I mean, with any luck, maybe the Orioles can actually have a better season than the Reds. So that's interesting. Something else that you touched on before that I thought was fascinating when you're talking about the DH, and everybody always talks about how it's not fair for the AL because their pitchers don't hit. But I love the spin that you put on it. And you're like, no, it's actually not fair for the NL because they're not the ones that have these big time DH bats. So I never really thought about it that way, but you're 100% right, because let's be honest. Be honest. National League pitchers, American League pitchers, none of them really can hit anyway.
What's the net difference? So the really good national. First of all, these guys don't stay on teams that long. So half of the National League pitchers were in the AL the year before and can't hit. So they're just taking up a spot going 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. Nobody can bunt. There's no advantage. Matter. Yeah, DeGrom's a really good athlete, and he happens to be a good hitter. There's a few of those guys, very few. So the advantage is all on the American League for having that built-in designated hitter that's in the lineup, that's just a staple of the lineup, and the National League's just piecing it together in the World Series of all places. Imagine in the NBA or the NFL where the other conference had something built in like a kicker. And you're like, oh, we don't have a kicker in the National League. We just have a punter who we asked to kick in the Super Bowl. Like, it'd be like, that's crazy. That's what it's like. It's like you have a specialized player that the other league doesn't have and gets stuck dealing with it in the biggest stage, the World Series. But interleague play makes it so that they play all year round, but they still don't. You don't add a $15 million bat for 15 games a year.
No. And
so they still don't have it.
And listen, the nice thing about the DH, I look at it from 2 perspectives. One is it gives us all a chance to see the aging superstar, the guy that can still hit, but he just can't play the field anymore. And we talked about that. And that's why it's exciting that Nelson Cruz, who obviously we all know he can still hit, that he's sticking around. And now he's on the Washington Nationals. So here's a chance for him to go and play in the NL for a team that normally would have had a DH. So that's really exciting. But another thing is, it enables you, when you've got that extra hitter, maybe you don't have to platoon guys like in the outfield. Instead, now you can platoon an outfielder and a DH. So you can have 4 big bats in the lineup every day instead of having 3 and having to rotate some guys. So I love that thing about it too. Interesting fact about Nelson Cruz, and I wanted this I love, now that he's with the Nationals. So he signed his first professional contract with the Mets. It was February 17th of 1998. All right. Which is approximately just over 8 months before Juan Soto was born.
Nice.
So, and they're teammates now. So I thought that was an interesting stat, the way you see it.
That's crazy.
What about the Yankees, man? I want to talk about a couple of things the Yankees did. First off, they traded Gary, I cannot hit above 200, Sanchez, and Gio Urshela, basically for Josh Donaldson.
Well, the shortstop is a good glove.
He is a good glove. He is a good glove.
Kiner
Falafel. So he's kind of half Ralph Kiner, half falafel. So he's tasty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a good glove. They took on Josh Donaldson's big contract, which the Twins clearly wanted to get out from under, $25 million a year for the last 2 years.
And not only that, just to interject for a second, didn't we all think that Josh Donaldson was washed up a few years ago anyway?
Yeah, I mean, he's been solid. He hasn't been the MVP form of 4 or 5 years ago. It's interesting. I don't love the fit for the Yankees because they have a lot of swing and miss guys, and he falls into that lineup. But they needed to get out. They needed to get Sanchez off the team. They had to give up a little something in Urshela. They probably like him, but I mean, you don't see too many trades where it's just like two major leaguers for two major leaguers.
Yep.
Usually there's always like prospects being traded. These were just two major leaguers for two major leaguers. The Twins wanted to get out from under Donaldson's contract. The Yankees have big payroll. They could absorb it.
Yeah.
The Yankees needed to desperately change the culture and get out from Sanchez, who fans I know around here can't stand.
Yep.
He gave you, 200 at bats a year that you wanted to throw up when you watched him, flail at curveballs in the dirt or sliders away. So they were tired of him. I think interestingly, the Yankees kind of didn't do what the fans are starting to get annoyed around here. And I take a little joy in it as a Met fan, but the Yankee fans are starting to get annoyed because I think they wanted to swing for the fences and look for Freeman. I think as a secondary option, they wanted to trade for Olsen. And then in the end, they just signed Rizzo, which isn't a bad move. There's nothing wrong with Anthony Rizzo. I just think they saw him half a year last year. They didn't really love what they got from him.
Yep.
And then that was what they ended up doing. So I don't think the fans really feel like the Yankees did what Yankees typically do. But clearly under this Steinbrenner regime, the kids, they don't just spend at any amount. Now their payroll's still exorbitant. It's still top 3, top 4, but they're not just going to go to any length to sign anyone.
Yeah. No. So what do you think that means for Luke Voigt? Is he on his way out of town?
Well, no, with the DH, I mean, the Yankees have 800 DHs. So, I really think, and I was talking about this with my brother-in-law, who's a huge Yankee fan, and he's like, and he's right. It comes time where Stanton needs to be a position player. Yeah. He hasn't been hurt in a few years. They got to stop with Giancarlo Stanton, who's built like an NFL linebacker, can't play 120 games in left field. He needs to play the outfield. And Voigt should be their DH. But for whatever reason, they baby Stanton where they act like he can't play the field. Meanwhile, he played 10 years on Florida or wherever, 8 years with the Marlins.
The guy can play. Yeah.
So I think that the Yankees will still be good, but I don't think the Yankees did anything with pitching. And if they don't address pitching, I mean, Garrett Cole can't pitch every day. I think that's their problem.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to mention, I had to bring up my Orioles. The Orioles signed a guy named Jordan Lyles, and they gave him 1 year, $7 million. This is a guy who's a lifetime 54 and 79 with a 5.21 ERA lifetime. Is baseball so desperate for starting pitchers that a guy with a 5 career ERA gets $7 million a year? I mean, is it that bad? I mean, because let's be honest, 5.21 ERA, that's not a good starting pitcher. And this guy's making $7 million.
I think he slots right into the middle of the Orioles rotation just fine.
He's like the number 2 starter. There's no doubt. But you know what I'm saying? Like, why did the Orioles have to pay him $7 million? Like whatever happened to the point where you get a guy like this, whose career numbers are not very good, that doesn't stay in baseball? I mean, this guy's been in baseball. That's up 5 runs a game.
That feels like a GM who was given a $7 million free agency budget and was like, I can't really spread this around. What does Jordan Lyles want? 5?
Well, listen, I have $7 million. I have to spend it on somebody today.
Yeah.
Lyles is available, so let's just sign him real quick.
He's probably got like plus fastball. He's probably got some good stuff. So they're just throwing it against the wall and seeing if it sticks.
I mean, really, that's the
he
way.
He probably has a plus fastball and he walks. I don't even know him. He probably throws hard, walks a lot of people. He probably has like the tools to be much better. Has never put it all together, and they're just rolling the dice. Listen, Matt Harvey is getting $10 million a year the last 3 years. Meanwhile, his ERA probably was even worse than that. And people kept taking a chance. Now, in defense of him, I guess he had a track record years ago, so people are hoping he figures it out.
Yeah, but that's not fair. He was also pitching under the influence. So I mean, he couldn't even, when his arm was about to fall off, he couldn't even feel it because he was
cocaine.
So high.
He had the cocaine.
So what do you think about giving Kershaw $17 million? Let's just go into the assumption
he's a bargain.
He's not going to be healthy, but
he's a bargain.
Oh, at $17 million. I mean, if you're paying Jordan Lyles $7 million, then $17 million is nothing. I mean, even if he gives you 20 starts, it's worth
the right 20 starts. Is he there at the end of the year, and is he there in the postseason? The Dodgers don't look at things the way a mid-market team does, or the way a team just hoping to make the playoffs. The Dodgers are like, we'll give Kershaw a couple months off. He can have a tendonitis. He can have this. be there in
Whatever you want.
September, October, November, whatever.
That's
So
exactly right.
yeah, that's fine.
Well, listen, there's quite a few guys still out there. Freeman, Bryant, Castellanos, Trevor Story, Carlos Correa. So we're going to hear over the next couple of weeks about what all these guys are doing. There's a ton of free agent NFL signings, a lot of trades.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
We're going to hold off on that till next week, just because it's going to take a long time to get through. There is so many guys, and it just every time you look, it's just more and more and more. So instead, I just wanted to go to a couple other things, that I found a little bit unbelievable. And I want to start off talking about Kyrie Irving really quickly. Okay, we know this guy is a beast. He went out and dropped 60 the other day in a blowout victory. But this is a guy that he doesn't believe in the vaccination. So he's not allowed to play at home. He has to just sit there, right?
Yep.
The Nets actually got fined $50,000 because he was in their locker room. I mean, what is going on here? I mean, is somebody just completely crazy? I mean, to me, it makes no sense whatsoever. Yet another guy that's unvaccinated from another team can come in and play no problem, but he can't, right?
The whole thing is crazy.
It really is
crazy.
It really is.
By the way, if New York City doesn't change their current vaccine mandate, the New York Mets and the New York Yankees, unvaccinated players cannot play at home. It's not just the Brooklyn Nets. So right now, for instance,
are there guys on the team that are unvaccinated?
The Mets and Yankees were going into, before the mandate was issued in New York, which wasn't issued until December. So it didn't affect last season. But before the mandate was issued, the talk was that the Mets and Yankees were two of the most lowest vaccination statuses in baseball.
Interesting.
Aaron Judge clearly hasn't been vaccinated because he was getting peppered with questions the other day and was deferring. And there's been leaks, or there's been rumors DeGrom isn't, but I'm not sure. Definitely Nimmo isn't. So there's definitely guys.
Interesting.
And they're hopeful that it works itself out by April 7th or whenever opening day is. But as of right now, the New York Mets and New York Yankee players cannot play at home. But any unvaccinated player can come in and play at Citi Field or Yankee Stadium. So it's the Kyrie Irving thing in reverse, or the same thing.
It's the same thing. It makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Crazy.
Makes no sense.
Welcome to 2022, boys and girls.
Well, I look forward to hearing how that's going to continue. A couple other things that I just wanted to mention. The Blazers, they lost 5 of 6 games by over 30 points. Okay. If that's not definition of a team that's tanking, then I don't know what is. I don't see any clear-cut number one, so I don't know why they would be tanking, but it is what it is. And a couple other things with NBA. Is Malik Beasley, is he the new Tony Snell?
Sure.
19 minutes, 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 blocks, 0 steals. I could have done that. Okay. My stats were better than that last night in the game because, I didn't have any points, but I did some of those other things. And then congratulations to Gregg Popovich. I don't like the guy at all. I think he's too outspoken for my taste. But he did break Don Nelson's record for most wins. He's a lock Hall of Famer whenever they decide to put it in. I think he's got 5 championships, 3 Coach of the Year. He's had a 500 record for the last 22 seasons, something crazy like that. So really, really, really great stuff out of him. And then a couple bizarre things that I just wanted to talk about is, one, Calvin Ridley. All right. The funny thing about this guy, and this is kind of the meme that's going around with this guy, he bet $1,500 and he lost $10 million.
Yep.
And I thought that is just phenomenal. He bet. It's funny because you can beat the hell out of your girlfriend and get suspended for a couple games, or you can do steroids and get suspended for 4 games. But God forbid you bet on FanDuel.com $1,500 and you're gone for the entire season and you lose out on $10 million.
Yeah,
again, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
You can't do it, and apparently it's preached around the league. You can't bet on, you can't bet. So it's dumb that he did it.
Yeah, it is. It was made known that it was out there, and if you know that and you still do it, then shame on you. It's a stupid rule, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Do you remember, I think it was like 2 years ago, ESPN was having all kinds of financial problems and they just were laying off people left and right? Yes, Darrin, I do. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Do you realize that they signed Troy Aikman and they signed Joe
Yeah,
Buck to these
for
massive
800
deals?
million.
Yeah. So between the Mannings, Aikman, and Joe Buck, their Monday Night Football is going to cost them $50 million a year.
What's a little money got to do with it?
It's pretty incredible. And then I want to leave with one more thing. I know I'm jumping around a lot here because I find all these things really interesting. You ever heard of Bellarmine University or college?
No.
I think it's either their first or second year in Division I basketball. All right. They won their Atlantic Sun tournament, meaning they get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, but they were unable to accept it because the rules say that you cannot accept a bid into the tournament for your first 5 years after getting into Division I.
I knew that. Actually, I remember hearing that. It's happened to another team. Yeah. You're on trial period. You're on probation.
And you win. Come on, you win your conference. Yep. I don't like it. I don't like it
either. But I think that's part of like the conference allowing you to come in is that you forfeit your bid or something. I forget.
I don't know.
Or no, because they're moving up from D2 to D1, right?
Yeah.
That's what. So it's I know it's terrible, but
it really makes no sense to me. But anyway, I just thought I would leave everybody with that. But Phil, great show as always. I know we ran through a bunch of stuff. NFL, NBA. I'm sorry, Major League Baseball, and the tournament took up so much time today. We're going to get to some football next time.
We'll get a better picture of where things are.
Getting some really great feedback on our interview. Love talking with John the other day. Hope people really enjoyed that interview. There's a few more that I'm trying to work on, and hopefully we'll have some soon. So guys, thank you so much for joining us again. And let's spread the word. Let's grow this thing and hope you're enjoying it. Be sure to leave some comments for us. Let us know what you think and enjoy the tournament as it starts tomorrow. And just remember my Final Four pick. You want it. You want to make some money. You want to win your office bracket. This is the guy that'll take you to the promised land. Just saying. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And we will talk again soon.
Go Irish.
We'll see. Bye-bye.